The federal price on carbon and the rebates most Canadians receive to offset those costs are both increasing today. The planned increase is the latest in yearly hikes to the price on carbon, going up to $80 per tonne from $65. It's scheduled to go up $15 per year until 2030, when the tax will reach $170 a tonne. The federal government has received pushback from the opposition as well as the provinces, as Canadians continue to face pressure due to the rising cost of living. Canadians filling up at the gas station can expect to pay around 3 cents more for a litre of gasoline, about $1.65 for a 50-litre tank. The tax will also add about 4 cents per litre of diesel. The price of natural gas will also go up, adding about $65 a year for the average Canadian household. With barbecue season right around the corner, a 20-pound tank of propane will cost a little over $2 more. The carbon rebate is expected to give back between $100 and $200 quarterly for single adults and between $200 and $400 for a single family of four. That's, of course, depending on where you live. So we want to talk a little bit more about this. So we are joined now by Marvin Ryder. He's an associate professor in marketing at the DeGroote School of Business at McMaster University, and he joins us from Hamilton today. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning and happy Easter, Hillary.
Happy Easter to you as well. Happy first day of April. We have this carbon tax. We're wanting to know a little bit from your point of view about how exactly this is going to impact Canadians, how it's going to impact their wallets. And I do understand that you did a bit of a personal experiment on all of this over the past year. So maybe if we can start there, Marvin, with how much you think this might cost Canadians.
Right. Well, the most visible thing you're going to notice, of course, is gasoline prices have gone up. And whenever you get your natural gas bill, that will have gone up. The good news with natural gas is we're now into April. This is a slower month for heating. And then we get to a very low month until the fall. For me personally, I've been tracking the carbon tax every year since it's been introduced. I gather all of my receipts for gasoline. I gather all my receipts for natural gas. And last year, in 2023, I actually got more rebate than I directly paid. Now, there's lots of people who say, well, you're forgetting the indirect impacts of the carbon tax, but they're actually very small. The Bank of Canada has indicated that the carbon tax adds 0.1% to the inflation rate. So if you hear an inflation rate of 2.8%, 0.1 of that is due to the carbon tax. It's not the boogeyman that everyone wants it to be.
So you're saying here, Marvin, that based on what you were tracking from your own spending, that you were getting more back than what you spent. How sort of similar is that going to be for most Canadians? Do you think that that is going to be the experience of most people?
Right. So the short answer is about 80% of Canadians are going to get back more than they pay. Now, I lead a relatively low carbon lifestyle. What does that mean? I only have one car. I don't have gas-powered toys like motorcycles or skidoos or ATVs. I only live in one house. I don't have a cottage or a second place someplace else. If you're a fairly wealthy Canadian who have all of those extra trappings, no, you're not better off. In fact, you're given an incentive through the carbon tax to reduce your carbon footprint. And that's the real key to understanding the carbon tax. Those who are doing a good job in managing their footprint, this is not a problem for you. It's those who are not, who are incentivized to bring their carbon output down.
We have also, on that note, of course, heard from the opposition. We've even heard from some Liberal premiers in some provinces saying that actually, in their view, this is also going to harm Canadians who are not earning as much because they simply don't have other means to try and offset some of this, saying that at a time when the cost of living is going up, when wages are stagnant, that they think that this is penalizing Canadians who don't have other options. What's your response to some of that?
Well, I just think those people are forgetting that you get a quarterly carbon tax rebate. Now, in fairness, the federal government didn't do a good job of labeling that. Originally, it was called the Climate Action Incentive or something to that effect. So when it showed up in your bank account, you had no way of connecting it to the carbon tax. I think now that they have renamed it specifically as a carbon tax rebate, maybe you can connect the dots. But it's like so many things. I pay it today. I get the rebate 3 months from now. I just don't see it that way. And again, frankly, if people would just take the time to measure, but they don't have to, instead, axe the tax is much easier to communicate than a complicated calculation as we go along.
Then how do you think this should have been possibly communicated to Canadians? Because certainly the idea behind a tax is that it is supposed to try and change behavior, and yet at the same time we then have these rebates. So how do you think all of this should have been communicated, ideally?
I wish I could say there was a simple answer to this. Many of the people I have arguments with first begin with the idea that they don't believe climate change is happening. Or if climate change is happening, it's not due to man. Or if it's due to man, it's not due to carbon dioxide. Why are we focused on this tiny little greenhouse gas for everything? So those people are never going to accept any action at all. Another little wrinkle to this is many people think this is a Justin Trudeau creation, or at least a creation of his government. It's not. The people who came up with the carbon tax, two economists, won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2018 for this. Their research demonstrated that it was both effective at reducing carbon pollution and also had very little impact on the growth of the country. Today, 54 countries in the world do carbon pricing. 14 United States have carbon pricing as well. And yet I don't think the average person has taken any time to learn about it. Is that a fault of the government? Probably. We should do more to try to educate us. But most of us don't want to learn about something that we don't want to learn about.
We've heard from the federal government, including the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, a bit of a challenge to some of these provinces, saying, well, then come up with something else. In some cases, some of these provincial premiers say that they are going to look into this. What do you think is going to come from all of that? Is that just politics, or do you think that there might be some good ideas that come here?
Well, I think first it's important to realize that not every province pays the carbon tax. Quebec does not pay the carbon tax the same way as Ontario does because it's part of something called a cap and trade program. That's a great alternative to a carbon tax. And I'm speaking to you from Ontario, where we were part of a cap and trade along with Quebec and along with California, but it was canceled by Premier Doug Ford when he got elected. I guess he felt that any carbon pricing was the wrong kind of pricing. Cap and trade really only affects the business community. The average citizen wouldn't be affected. And so to the extent provinces want to opt out of carbon taxes in favor of a cap and trade system, I think that's a great alternative. Otherwise, I'm listening and I'm just not hearing anything. The silence is deafening. If we're going to take climate change seriously, and remember, Canada's target is to reduce our emissions by 40% of what they were in 2005, and to do that by 2030, we're down 6.5%, but we still have a long ways to go. We've got to come up with something. This is not such a bad system.
Well, Marvin, we will see if we hear more on this today. Of course, we do know that we're going to be hearing from the Prime Minister, from the Leader of the Opposition, Pierre Poilievre, and the Leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, throughout the day on all of this. So we'll see what else we hear. But for now, we're going to leave it there. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for this.
Glad to be with you.
That was the Associate Professor at the DeGroote School of Business at McMaster University, Marvin Ryder. Thank you.